Okay, time to get out the book, How to Fly an Airplane. I forgot step 3. I just better go back and check that first. Not to worry, folks. In this case, I'm checking a book on special, rarely used procedures. In this case, I'm looking over the directions for a short field takeoff. The goal here is to get off the ground and start flying sooner than normal. 25 degrees of flaps are now set to give you some more lift in this maneuver. Coming up to the holding line, it's time to be extra vigilant, looking for other traffic landing or taking off or taxiing. You're also listening to the radio and announcing your intentions on the radio. At an untowered field, every pilot is the air traffic control. Instead of just rolling out for a normal takeoff, we're going to come up to the runway threshold here and put the brakes on and stop. At the runway threshold, we'll be applying full brakes and slowly applying full power. Checking the configuration, the trim up above. As we start moving, check the instruments for engine power and other vital indicators. Instead of a normal takeoff where we rotate at 60 miles an hour, we are going to lift off rather horizontally. We're flying more slow, and we can do this because the flaps have lowered the stalling speed. The angle of attack of the wing is much flatter than normal, allowing you to actually see over the nose in a way you can't on a normal higher angle takeoff. At a positive rate of climb, I carefully retract the flaps. Now we can pitch up to the best rate of climb speed of 85 miles an hour. Observing the angle of the wing allows you to fly without instruments. Sometimes an instructor will cover up the instruments so you learn how to fly without them. Instruments like airspeed indicator, attitude indicator, and vertical speed indicator can fail. Besides, it's a bad habit to fixate on instruments. What you need to be doing here is looking out the front to see and avoid traffic and birds. Making the turn into the downwind leg of the pattern. Doing a 30-degree bank into the turn. We get a glimpse of the airport just right there over the hat. Adjusting the trim to a cruise speed. The trim or angle of that little thing out back called the elevator is what keeps everything in balance. Really scanning and looking around for traffic. Vietnam really developed my hypervigilance. An outside view that even most pilots never actually see. It's rather like what a World War II belly gunner would have seen about 1,000 feet off the ground. Most of the time, a pilot's consciousness is focused up in his world, somewhat detached from the ground below him and the earthlings down there. Technically, air is a fluid just as much as water In fact, it's like being a fish in your own environment when you're flying. A real rolling map. Unrolling below you. The ultimate video game, I suppose. We're gliding with the power off at 80 miles an hour. This is the best glide speed, meaning that you're going to get the greatest horizontal range for a given altitude. A good thing to have proficiency in for that day when maybe your engine fails. And we're also doing a practice in precision landing. There's 6,000 feet in this runway, but we're going to get down and stop within 600 feet. Meanwhile, back in the cockpit, we're telling everybody where we are, who we are, and what we're going to do. Configuring the trim for best glide speed. This is not a low approach from miles out like an airliner. Though I was once on a Mexican MD-80 passenger jet that did a pattern landing just like I'm doing here in a light plane. Something that would scare the bejeebers out of a Americano. Landing is the most critical phase of flight because you're getting slower and lower. Many airliner passengers are nervous about taking off. Don't worry, you're getting faster and higher. The safest part of this. The geometry of the runway changes as you get lower and closer to it. One instructor told me that people who have had art training tend to be some of the best pilots. Glad that I learned 3-point perspective. At this altitude, you shift your perspective from the landing spot to the far end of the field. You don't want to fixate on what's right in front of you. Every flight is an adventure. Sometimes more adventure than you bargained on. It's always good to get back to Mother Earth and see what's going on down here. One's daily problems down here are put into perspective, however, by going up into the air. Instant replay from below outside. The closer to the ground you get, the more that you're going to get gusts and, as you can see, pushing things from side to side. However, this day is a relatively calm piece of cake. I've had days where you arrive someplace in howling winds where you have to bank into the wind and land on one wheel. A good pilot is always learning how to fly. Though, looking back, I've had more close calls driving to and from an airport. Be careful in your cars. It can get crazy out there.